Okay, what up ladies and gents, it's your favorite Asian robot right here, hopefully your favorite official content creator for the First Descendant, and today I'm going to be teaching you how I built the Ancient Knight. Okay, if you guys have a different build that you want to post up, go right ahead, but this is how I built my Ancient Knight. I built it mostly as a single target damage weapon because I didn't really see a lot of use for it as an AoE type weapon. It really wasn't that. Alright, I'll go through and explain why when we go through its abilities, base stats, and everything, but the Ancient Knight, based on my vision of it, does pretty well, and I use it as a sort of fun weapon to spray down Colossi because it is Serena's weapon, so obviously we're using it with Serena's gun build, and it can do some pretty hilarious things. For example, this is the Tormentor, alright? You might be very familiar with him. Now, this is with the entirely wrong element, but if I mag dump one entire mag, I can actually kill the Tormentor, assuming all of them hit weak spots. This is because this particular gun has some pretty insane stuff attached to it, and yeah, you can take advantage of that to actually kill the Tormentor without even prepping a toxic element. Alright, and I'm also well aware that I'm turning into the invisible dude, but don't worry about it. I'm too lazy to change this t-shirt, so I'm invisible, but at least I'm not a floating head, so there's that. Anyway, let's go through this, and let me show you how to build the Ancient Knight while I phase out of reality. Okie dokie day. This is recognizable as Serena's gun build. If you haven't consulted her video and you don't know how to build this, go check that video on Serena's gun build for Colossi, for boss killing, because this is what you're going to use. Now, let's start with the stats of the Ancient Knight. First and foremost, we got to go into the details. All right. So the Ancient Knight has 16,318 firearm attack at baseline. All right, which is pretty darn good. It also starts with a base of 5,875 fire attack. So it already has an element attached to it, which we can leverage with this particular build. Of course, you can also attach different elements into it, and I'll have a section later where I explain the concept of doing it. I didn't do it here because it felt unnecessary to me, but there might be content you might want to take on that you need a specific element for, in which case, if you don't have enough damage during that content, you can absolutely change the element. All right, you can't change the base element, but you can add another element on. Okay, fire rate is base of 521, which is pretty good. And the rounds per magazine is baseline of 27, but we can add a rounds per magazine core on it, therefore taking it up past 60, which is what I have now, and it's pretty darn fantastic, so I really like that. I will, again, explain my logic for this later. Okay, reload time. 1.8 seconds baseline. Firearm critical hit rate's only 3%, and the multiplier is only 1.2, so we can basically think of this as we'll never crit. So since that is the case, and we're not going to use crits on here, we're going to use multi-hit. It also has a baseline multi-hit damage of 0.54, which means that we can multiply this up pretty well, and therefore this weapon is worth considering for multi-hit. Weak point damage multiplier, unfortunately, on this weapon is trash. It only has a weak point multiplier of, unbelievably, 1 times, which is ridiculous because I feel that look, if they have to nerf or change Serena, this weapon's going to be utterly garbage. So I would really like it if they would actually increase their weak point multiplier, at least give me a 1.5. All right, make it worth my time. If later on you need to nerf this weapon or nerf Serena, this will actually make this weapon more usable. Right now, it's mostly usable because of Serena's power itself, and I will explain that again a little later. All right. Okay, accuracy. This weapon's very accurate. Damage drop-off is a nice 33 meters. Effective range is 58 meters, but you don't want to be further than 33 meters. Otherwise, you're not getting your maximum damage. The drop-off is pretty sharp because the final multiplier is 0.4, which means you can lose up to 60% of your damage. So you really want to be within the 33 meters. And that's about it. The rest of the stuff is movement stats. Now, let's talk about the unique ability of this weapon. This weapon is unique because when reloading in midair, it will give you the ability of float. When multi-hit triggers in midair, you will also be granted atonement. Keep in mind that these abilities are all midair. You have to be using this rifle while you are in the air. Do not be using it on the ground. Okay, so what does float do? Okay, when you reload in midair, float will increase the effective range of this weapon, all right, by 130%. This means that instead of 33 meters, you can actually fire from 66 meters or more away. Now, 130% is obviously more than the 33 meters, but in my mind, I like to keep it simple, 66 meters in midair. You also have a 10% chance of HP recovery on hit, and you will recover 2% of your health per hit. All right, but this is not really important. unless you're desperate. Okay, Atonement. Now, this is pretty fantastic. Why? Atonement will actually increase your multi-hit damage, and as far as I can tell, it's an additive increase. Since it's 7.7 multi-hit damage per stack, you can actually get an additive bonus of 77% multi-hit damage. All right, which can then be adjusted by all your other perks, Arche-Tuning, all that kind of stuff, which is pretty darn good. Keep in mind, though, that you have to trigger a multi-hit first in order to get Atonement, so your multi-hit chances will come mostly from your module and then from all the other stuff. So that's why we've decided to make this a type of gun where you can hit multi-hits as much as possible. Now, because it's using general rounds, it works really, really well with Serena, because Serena, while in midair using a general round weapon, gets 50% multi-hit chance additive. You also have the seasonal bonus, bring that up to 68%. Then whatever else you have on your gun makes it pretty darn fantastic. So you're almost guaranteed to get those multi-hits, stack up your Atonement. This thing's going to deal a lot of damage. All right? Now, you understand the unique ability of this weapon. You understand the base stats of the weapon. Let's talk about the weapon rolls that we have on this. Okay, in terms of weapon rolls, here's what I have on this weapon. First, I went for weak point damage and firearm attack. Why? We're not going for crits, so the rest of the rolls are pointless for that. I went with firearm attack and weak point damage because they were crucial. Gold rolls for those. Then I've got a purple fire attack, and then the last roll is your choice. I left it as weapon change speed, and even with these crappy rolls, this thing is dealing a lot of damage. Now, again, it is mostly because of Serena that's dealing damage, but you gotta understand that this thing is pretty badass on its own. In terms of the weapon cores, I have fire rate in the free slot up there, rounds per magazine in the green slot, the cerulean one. The Xantic will match the element of whatever you put on the gun. So if you need to modify this later, okay, you have to change that Xantic slot. And for the two Malachite slots, it's firearm attack, firearm attack. If you can get them as close to 80% as possible, that's great. But you'll notice I don't have ideal rolls on this thing, and it still kicks ass. All right? It is a pretty insane gun, straight up. Just gonna say that. All right? Now, how do you actually build it? I've only put one build on this, but I will show you a variation of it a little later. All right, well, rather I'll explain how to vary it, but here are the modules you are going to need in order to make this gun great. Okay, let me remove my camera while we discuss this, and done. Okay, so first and foremost, you've got your rifling reinforcement and action and reaction. These are your standard two, okay, firearm attack modules. They will serve you well here. Now, some people, when killing Colossi, will change rifling reinforcement for ultra precision strike. You can choose to do this if you want to. It is a fairly fantastic weapon. It's a fairly fantastic mod, but again, it depends on your accuracy. I actually fight without it, and I'm totally fine. All right, so I decided to go with the standard. I'm also using fire enhancement and fire priority on this gun. I did not want to use superheated barrel or whatever it's called. Hold on, it's the one with fire. Superheated gun barrel, because this one reduces your fire rate and that reduces your overall DPS. Not really a wise decision. So fire enhancement, fire priority is good enough for me. Okay. Next, you will want to have charge amplification. This further increases your firearm attack, and although it reduces your critical hit damage, we're not relying on critical hits, so it doesn't matter. Last but not least is weak point sight. Weak point sight will help give you at least a base multiplier to your weak points, which will help multiply your multi-hits and all that kind of stuff, so you're going to deal a bit more damage. Again, the weak point multiplier on this is absolute ass, but at the very least, if you have this, it's going to help you out a little bit. All right, next two things that we're going to need. Oh, and fire rate up is pretty standard as well. Increases your fire rate. This one needs no explanation. More fire rate, more DPS. Okay. Now for your multi-hit modules, I really recommend multi-percussion sight because you don't use critical hits here. So this gives you a 30% multi-hit chance straight up. All right. So you'll see it there in the stats there, multi-hit chance, 30%. Your multi-piercing sights will increase your multi-hit damage multiplier by 70%. This takes your 0.54 base all the way up to 0.918, which you can see in the window there. All right. And it reduces your critical hit damage. But again, we're not relying on that. Last but not least, you want multi-hit induction. When you hit a weak point, you will be able to have an increased multi-hit chance for up to 5 seconds. This can go up to 57% after 10 hits. It's fantastic and gives you every reason to shoot at a weak point. All right, if you can keep your gun on a weak point target, that extra 57% of multi-hit chance, remember, multi-hit can go over 100%. So this plus your 30% gives you a base of 87%. You add the 68 that you can get flat, and you're already over 100, which means not only are you going to deal an additional multi-hit, but you're guaranteed a multi-hit. You can have multi-hits on multi-hits, all right? So this is how we're going to use this, and this is the build that I felt was awesome. That being said, you are already going to deal insane amounts of damage to enemies. Let me just show you for a second, all right? Once again, let me restart this Tormentor, okay? If I activate Serena's skill, whether I'm hitting a multi-hit point or not, all right, in that entire mag, I just dealt 136 million damage, owing mostly to Serena's skill. The firearm itself only dealt 33 million, but it's not that far behind the last dagger, and my last dagger was adjusted for toxic, all right, which is insane. So yeah, this thing can do some pretty beastly damage. Of course, most of the damage is coming from Serena, so do be aware of that. Okay, so now you know how to build it, now you know what's inside it, all that other kind of stuff. How do you vary it? How do you vary and change this? Okay, here's something you need to understand. If you ever need to put a different element on it, then your fire enhancement, fire priority, please replace that with the correct element. You're going to need to catalyze it twice at least. All right, so if you want to put toxic on it, you can put toxic enhancement, toxic priority, make sure they're both rutile slots. And then after that, you'll have to change the Xantic roll of fire attack, 172%, change that for toxic. You cannot eliminate the base fire attack of 5,875, but you just have to go with it, and this is how you change it for another element if you need to do that. Keep that in mind, all right? Now, Inversion Reinforcer, we're actually going to use fire focus rounds here just for this demonstration. I could squeeze out a little more damage on the Tormentor by switching to toxic focus rounds, but that's not really the point here. We may as well enhance the fire attack because this will then combine with fire priority and the fire attack core to deal even more damage already. Furthermore, you can actually reduce an enemy's resistance to fire specifically by using your Sacred Flame. This will cause you to take a little bit longer in the battles, but, you know, if you really need the extra power, you can cast this first, which is pretty darn fantastic. All right? So be aware of that. Oops, sorry. Last but not least, Arche-Tuning. In terms of Arche-Tuning, you are going to want to use this falling tree. Oh my god, my green screen is starting to come to life behind me. Sorry. Didn't really notice that. Let me just adjust it. Cheap green screens, right? What can you do? When it gets bright, it starts to exist, hovering behind you like a ghost. All right. Now, here, we go all the way down for hit points because, again, this is Serena we're talking about. Okay, and the Ancient Knight is specifically designed for Serena. Please don't use it with some other character because you're going to get ass results. All right? Now, if you go toward the left-hand side, you will get all the weak point damages. I usually go for the enhanced accuracy because it works. Because there's no other option. You can go for reloads if that bothers you, but you end up like getting the same stuff anyway. The only difference is that you miss out on 0.2% firearm attack, explosion attack. You gain that here and get 2% multi-hit chance, but this is multiplicative, so whatever. Anyway, what you want to do is go down the left-hand side, go up, grab this, go for all the multi-hit stuff. You will miss out one here, like I said, but this is more than good enough. And this is how you do up multi-hits for Arche-Tuning, all right? Use this with any gun that benefits from multi-hit over crit. As you know from the crit gun tree, this is what the crit gun tree will look like. You ignore the multi-hits here to go for crit. All right, so either way, with gun builds, it's going to be either multi-hit or crit. You're going to go either way, but both will always have weak point damage anyway. So, all right, this is how your Arche-Tuning tree is going to look. All right, now, let's actually go in and use this in combat against the Colossus. All right, we'll do a couple of different Colossi runs just for fun. Okay, just for the lulz, just for the giggles. All right, you can watch me be half phased out of reality while we do this. Okay, first and foremost, I think it would be prudent to start with Molten Fortress. Why? Because Molten Fortress is annoying. I mean, he is super weak now that he's been nerfed into dust, but he's also still annoying. All right, and because he's got fire resistance, you know, normally you'd think you should change your elements at least. But no, the Ancient Knight combined with Serena doesn't need to do that because the Ancient Knight is ridiculous in Serena's hands. Like I said, use it in any other character's hands, you're not going to have a great time. But use it in Serena's hands, and holy cowabunga, you're actually going to deal some serious stuff. So let's start floating. Shing! Float, Float.
I will not allow you.
Okay, there you go.
Ask Will as a monster.
So yeah, you just saw that. That is exactly how Serena operates. She goes in and absolutely wipes everything from the face of the planet. So that's about 24 million damage dealt in 2 seconds. That's about 12 million damage per second. Okay. I'm gonna go in and murder Gluttony next, but keep in mind that Gluttony is gonna also die in 2 seconds because Gluttony is actually weak against fire. All right. And that is how it works. Look at me phasing again. I'm phasing out of reality. Reality is bullying me. I'm sorry. I got to do something to amuse myself in between these runs. Okay. I do this in one take without, like, as I told you guys on stream, I do this in one take because there's no point in me, you know, showing you clips here and there and doing the edited videos because some people don't find that authentic. So I may as well just show it to you, like, you know, for real. Oh no, I'm phasing. I'm phasing. Unfortunately, can't be helped because this is how the lighting is. Because this green screen is not like a full-on green screen. It's just a green sheet that they sold to me with a stand and whatever. Works good, but you know, sometimes you phase. Shing! Alright, now this one you gotta go a little bit further, right? So you wanna grapple, double jump. Alright. Now, while floating over here, you wanna start shooting beforehand, and there you go. There's your Gluttony right there. Aim for the shoulder because that's a very big, obvious weak spot, and he's just done right there. Alright, so that's how you do it here in this neighborhood. That was a, yeah, 2-second kill, around about 36 million damage in 2 seconds. But don't forget, Gluttony is weak to fire. So again, this isn't a real test. Let's go actually kill Tormentor with this, all right? Which is what I'm sure you guys are interested in. Now, it's no last dagger. I'll be real with you about that. It's not going to be the last dagger, okay? You are not going to have that much firepower. But it is still pretty fun, and if you like a weapon that's just consistent with Serena, and you just don't have to care, and you can just murder a boss, then, you know, by all means. It's also slower than the ATOMs, but like I said, if consistency is your goal, then this is literally one of the most consistent weapons that you're going to find, because it has no negative factors. It's just go in, start spraying, enemy starts praying. Plain simple, end of story. Okay. Let's wiggle. Let's wiggle, wiggle. Okay, here we are. Now this is the demonstration you guys have been waiting for. Woo! Tormentor. Shing!
This is divine punishment.
I always like to surge here. Now aim for the shoulder. You want to aim for that shoulder. Alright, because multi-hits are important. Reload your gun and float. And there you go. There's Tormentor down like that. It's slower than Last Dagger and the ATOMs, because ATOMs can one-shot, although it's not a guaranteed one-shot, as you guys know from my demonstration. It depends on whether you crit with the ATOMs. But you can still get very, like, consistent kills without even changing the element. I could probably bring this down by about a second if I were to change the element in the Inversion Reinforcer, but that's a 9-second kill right there. So in Serena's hands, thanks to her abilities, this thing is brutally overpowered because, yeah, as you know, Serena's Redemption's Judgment, when you are in midair, you deal additional damage with every firearm attack. And you can firearm attack pretty nicely with this, plus trigger multi-hits, so yeah, it racks up the damage really quickly on the gun itself and on her skill. So there you have it, folks. This is how you use this. Now, before I completely phase out of reality, let me just thank our top supporters right here. March's top supporters, CG Mayhem, Jess A. Davis. Top Super Chatter, Lawbreaker, George Tishon, Sir Tommy, Jonathan Terry, D. Russ, Matthias M, Jody Wilkins. Top channel membership gifter, Arcane Silver, thank you so much. Top membership gifter list, Jody Wilkins, Chris Campbell, Matthias M, and D. Russ. Hell yeah! Thank you so much for watching this. Let me know if you enjoy the Ancient Knight as well. It's a pretty fun gun. Use it for the season. Have fun with it on Serena. All right, and y'all have a great time. And I don't know, like, look, I'm just gonna say this straight. Better enjoy it in case they decide to nerf Serena, because I know a lot of people be yapping about nerfing Serena. I hope that's not the case, but, you know, better enjoy it now, all right? Catch y'all later. Don't do anything weird while I'm gone. And I better go because the light's making me phase again. Bye!